Well, hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and we are live on a Friday afternoon, which means it's time for us to talk about coping with feelings. And, today is going to be a particularly important broadcast because what I'm going to talk about is coping with the feelings that we get when people label us. And so I'm looking forward to doing this broadcast, and I want to make sure that I thank Lauren, our viewer from Tasmania, because she was the one that inspired me to actually talk about this. And I'm going to explain to you how that came about in a second. So I want you to know that today we're going to be talking about both sides of labeling. Hi there, Jody. And we're also going to talk about what to do when somebody labels you. In other words, there are good labels and bad labels. And so understand we're going to look at it from both sides. And the other thing is this: if you haven't followed us on Facebook or Twitter, please do so, because if a technical glitch, as happened today, comes along, then that is where I will let you know what's happening and when where to go next, sort of thing. So make sure that you follow Dear Mama Sal on both Facebook and Twitter. And thank you for being here. I saw a lovely quote the other day, and it said that, what if people came with labels? Can you imagine this? Watch out doesn't know what the word faithful means, or can be a right, what, or don't choose this one as a friend. A lot of us, would have benefited by people coming with labels. And so what we're going to talk about is some of the fun stuff of this as well. W.C. Fields said that it ain't what they call you, it's what you answer to. And I want you to think about that. You are not what people label you. You are who you are. And it is up to you to stand up and protect who you are. However, I'm a great believer is also to listen to the labels, because are you kidding yourself that it's not true? And so I often wonder, I don't know about you, but, what are my neighbors, labeling me when I'm not around? Or what are my friends? Well, no, my friends, I presume, would not be saying things that they haven't already told me, because that's what I have friends for. But, it's just like, think about that, all right? What do people say about you when you're not around? What are the labels they use about you when you're not around? I wanted to put up some thoughts and prayers, particularly for our viewer, Bernice. She's going through a particularly stressful time at the moment, and it is really so difficult for her because it's out of her control. And as we all know, when things are out of our control and can have devastating effects on our lives, the stress on us at that time is horrific. And the feelings that go with that are so helpless. And so I'm sending a big hug to Bernice and prayers that everything goes well for you, honey. And, just hang in there. Sometimes the world is at its darkest before sunrise, all right? Ed Koch, I think he was mayor of New York at one time, right, has said stereotypes lose their power when the world is found to be more complex than the stereotype would suggest. When we learn that individuals do not fit the group or the group stereotype, then it begins to fall apart. So when we learn that individuals do not fit the group stereotype, then the image starts to fall apart. So what we need to do is to stand up and hold our heads up high and learn how to defend ourselves against the labels. Very, very important. Birthday-wise, I am aware that it is Louisiana Laurie's husband Bubba's birthday on the 10th. I'm aware that Lauren has a birthday on the 17th, and also that Andy has one on the 18th. So if you've got a birthday in this time frame, please let us know, because it's not in our database yet. And also big thanks to Lynn, who does the fun thumbnails that you've been seeing. So thank you for the time and effort you put into it, Lynn. I don't want you to ever think that I don't appreciate the fact that you just spend the time creating it. It's wonderful. Now then, how about this one? Toni Morrison, who wrote the movie or wrote the book Beloved that became Oprah turned it into a movie, but said this: definitions belong to the definers, not to the defined. In other words, people who label, the label is theirs, not yours. So if you've been labeled by somebody, as long as it's not true, then it's their problem, not yours. All right. And I thought that was a great reminder to us all to know that the label does not necessarily belong to us. So my question is, how do you feel when people label you? You know, I found that I've been labeled quite a lot in my life, and particularly I've noticed that since I got back into my house after the fire, I've been labeled good and bad by quite a few people. And what I've discovered is that it depends what the label is as to how I feel about it. So for me, I obviously don't like labels such as stupid or over emotional or pathetic. But what if the labels they're saying about you are things like genius, talented, kind, generous? How do you feel then? What does it do to your feelings, even as you hear those words? Let's just do them again and get really in touch with yourself and go, how do you feel when you hear these words? And imagine that they're being said of you. Stupid. You're stupid. You're just over emotional. You're pathetic. You're a genius. That's amazing. You're so talented. You're so kind. Ah, how generous of you. Can you feel that the words alone make you feel completely differently? Just the words. And it's not that you're smart or stupid that you react to these. It's like we do it. It's a human thing to do. It's human nature to feel it. But we very rarely think about the effect that it has on our bodies. And how many of you can feel that on some words you almost, have difficulty breathing as you listen to them? And others, you're quite happy to receive. So one of the things that I thought was quite interesting, I saw a quote from Annie Leibovitz. She's the photographer who did originally all the baby photographs that were so cute, and then has started photographing older women. And she said, I didn't want to let women down. One of the stereotypes I see breaking is the idea that aging and older women are not beautiful. She wanted to break that stereotype, the idea that that aging and older women are not beautiful. And good for her. I am forever grateful for her that she did incredible pictures of older women and showed how beautiful they are. And it's not just babies that are cute and beautiful, right? You put anybody in the right setting, with the right lighting, with the right whatever, and they are beautiful. Labels are labels. And I want you to understand, obviously you've got to look at the source. What about labels like doctor or lawyer? Do those labels conjure up a different feeling? When you've got when you're in a room and meeting people, and somebody says, "Oh, this is Joe. He's a judge." Do you have a different feeling in the conversation you're about to have with him? Or, "Hi, this is Jennifer, and she's a top cook, a top chef." Yeah, will you feel differently about talking to her? Or how about, "Hi, this is Joe and he's homeless"? You see, what happens is, as soon as we use the label, we put people in a box that changes how we deal with them. And you think about it, why did we put labels like doctor and lawyer onto people? I would like to say that the feeling we are meant to get is, if this person comes with a label that is doctor, we are meant to be able to trust this person. Or if this person comes with a label which is, lawyer, we are meant to be able to trust their judgment about the law. So you look at it and say to yourself, but is it across the board true? No, I think we've all known that there have been doctors that are not ethical, and there have been lawyers that have been struck off because they weren't ethical. So be careful not to absolute this. Just because somebody has the label, don't think they are totally trustworthy. Always look after yourself. Jody's saying, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Jody is our admin. And Jody's saying, I'm sensitive to it, especially regarding any of my disabilities. I realize it's my stuff, but I tend to feel less than and have a feeling that I can't do everything I used to. So the question is the label true? You see, that's the point that I come to, Jody, which is watch out for the labels, and then ask yourself, is the label true? Is it valid? Do you think the label old is true for me? Or retiree is true? Yeah, it's true. I also understand that when people use labels about my age, they also make me less capable on certain things. All right. And they start calling me funny names like dearie or love, or, it's really strange. And I just go, yeah. And what I really need to do is, and Jody's talking about that she says that her anger, because she said, I have anger that I can't do everything I used to do, right? So anger is a feeling, so it's your stuff. Good. And Jody said that, right? The anger is my stuff. The label of the disability is true. There you go, Jody. When you can take those two bits apart and see the difference, right? It is your reaction to the label that is your stuff. And if you look at the label without the emotion, which is where the feeling is, without the emotion, then is the label true? Yep, it's true. So you look at it and say, I'm okay with this. All right. You're, and by the way, it's just their opinion, Jody. It's not who you are. It's their opinion. Now, if you are somebody with a disability, and you have a disability, be that, whatever the reason for it, the truth is you have that disability. Now, if they call you a nasty name because of that, and I think I talk about that in a second, that's a whole different thing. And I wanted to go on and say to you, what about the labels Miss or Mrs., right? Do you understand that originally the word to define women was mistress? So I would be Mistress Sal, not Miss or Mrs. It was mistress. And, as soon as they put Mrs. in, do you understand? They started to label people as owned almost, if you can think about that. You see, they didn't change Mr. to say Mr. Married. No, but they did say of women, this is Mrs. Brown, which means that she is presumably married to Mr. Brown. So, or, the late Mr. Brown. So you think about that and you go, no wonder there was, an upswell about that. And the interesting thing is that, I lived through the time when we decided, no, that doesn't work anymore. And I, for one, went back to using Ms. as opposed to Miss or Mrs. Because it should not really matter. All right? Whether I'm married or not. Will you treat me differently? I am female. Men don't get labeled married or unmarried. All right. They either wear a ring or they don't, depending on, their mentality. So, and we know an awful lot of married men who don't. And the question is, why? So if you look at it, it is either true or not true. And if we are self-aware, if we know our stuff, we can look at the labels and own them. All right. I was saying this week that for the longest time, I used to get upset with the label obese. Now, the funny thing is, I no longer get upset with it because I know it to be true. And the interesting thing is that obese is purely a term for people who are over this weight. And I am over that weight. So why would I be upset about it? It's true. That's what I am. Now, I'm actually, as you all know, working really hard to get a new label, which is overweight. I don't know why overweight sounds so inspiring to me after being obese for all these years. And I am, working towards it. So the label, when it is, how about normal? All right. I hate the label normal. I don't ever want to be normal. But, it's amazing how that happens, where we get tied in to the label. And so let me just see who said this, because it's a great quote. Viktor Frankl said, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. So do you understand the day that I realized that obese wasn't an insult, it was a reality for anybody who is over this weight or, based on their height and everything else. When I realized that was a reality, that's when I realized, hang on a second, I need to own this, not get upset with it. And then, you see, as soon as I owned it, it didn't upset me anymore. And I did, anybody said, if they talk about somebody else being obese, I'll go, oh, I am too. Yeah. And they go, oh, no, you're not. Yes, I am. You see, I actually fight for the title now because I know it is true. And it doesn't mean that all obese people necessarily look like they're 600 pounds, right? It is just that people use the label. And so Viktor Frankl said, when we are no longer able to change a situation or, the label, because that is what society has put on this range, we are challenged to change ourselves. So if I don't want that label anymore, I have to do the work. I don't have to. I can choose to do the work so that I don't have that label anymore. That means I've got a few pounds to go. I'm heading towards the right direction. I think I got about another 10 pounds to go. Can you imagine how exciting I'm going to be? So what about labels as a medical diagnosis? Think about that. Do you like the label healthy? Yeah, she's pretty healthy. Or how about, as Jody has had, the label cancer? I'm pretty sure, Jody, that the moment you heard that label, your whole life changed. All right. I found it interesting when I got the label, you are pre-diabetic. I burst out laughing. And I know my doctor was confused. And he goes, "Why are you laughing?" I said, I can't believe I got away with it for so long. And he said, "Away with what?" I said, "Eating Mars bars. I can't believe that I ate sugar for so long and wasn't diabetic or pre-diabetic, but now I am." But you see, it is just a range. It says this is where my blood sugars are, and I have a choice now. Do I want to stay in this range? Do I want to drop below it? Or do I want to ignore the label that is a warning label and become a full-blown diabetic? My choice. But, it isn't a nasty label. It is a warning label to me. Jody heard her label of cancer and fought it. And Jody, 5 years cancer-free, or is it 6 now, I think? All right. So amazing. But then once she got clear of that, she then ended up with lymphedema. And if you don't know what that is, that's when your body's lymph nodes, don't work properly and you end up full of fluid. So you end up, really ballooning out. And if any of you have had swollen ankles or stuff like that, you will know how it affects not only the label affects you, but the physical affects you mentally. All right, because you're looking at your legs and you suddenly don't have ankles anymore. You now have tree stumps, instead of legs. And so I want to tell you, I have had my version of that, which is only a very small amount of swelling. But boy, I want to tell you, I know what it does to me psychologically. So if you hear that, boy, I can imagine Jody must have rolled her eyes and said, I fought so hard to get over cancer and now I've got lymphedema. But the interesting thing is she fought that as well. And now, Jody's onto a new life. But she also knows she's got years of changing her eating habits, changing everything that she does to bring herself back to that label of health. And I don't know, Jody, is there a possibility that you will be able to be considered healthy? You will still have another label, which is probably fibromyalgia or the other things that you suffer with. But, isn't it interesting that you have fought these things so hard? And therefore, I would, give another label, which is, brave, courageous. All those incredible words about somebody who doesn't quit, a survivor. That there's so many new labels that you get now. Yeah, and Jody's saying when she beat cancer and then found out she had lymphedema, she went, "Now this." Yeah, and I want to tell you that I have had my version of now this going on in my life at the moment. So I understand that. But you see, what I love about what you've done is you've taken each one, found out where the nugget of truth is, and then you have decided to create your own new label. And I am pretty certain that the label that your doctors put on you today are very positive ones. They're not hypochondriac or, a waste of skin or something. I am certain all your medical people talk very highly of you. I was seeing a picture today, for those of you who remember a viewer, Chloe in England, who suffers from a multitude of really painful, nasty stuff. And, quite honestly, she's like the Energizer bunny that just won't quit. And I saw a picture of her today, even with all that's going on in her life and all the difficulties and incredible pain and everything else she's going through, and her whole body being, almost septic, down on the beach with her crutches, paddling. Now that tells you an awful lot. And I know the labels that I put on her are amazing. And brave, and just I mean, amazing. I want to stick with amazing, because everything she does, the attitude she has about stuff, is keeping her alive, quite honestly. Now, the next thing I want to mention here is some people get labeled and get sucked in by the label, and some people get labeled and go, so what? Right? So you can tell one person like myself and go, but you're obese, and they will get, and curl up in a ball, and not fair, people beat up on me. Or in my case, I go, absolutely, you're right. I look pretty good for being obese, don't I? And so, to me, it is about, how do you react to the label? Do you let people's labels of you suck you in and bring you down? Or do you go, okay, that's a fact, now let me get on with my life and change the label or not, depending on what I want to do? And so I've got a lot of examples for you of people who got labeled and then decided so what? Because we know an awful lot of people who got labeled and just curled up into a ball and said that's not enough. I mean, that's enough. So, but I couldn't help but think, and again, I want to thank Lauren for getting me on this path, this trajectory to think about this. But let's think about the Olympics for a second. How many of you are going there? An awful lot of people who are going to come home from the Olympics with new labels, like gold medal winner, like the whole of the Canadian soccer team. And so you go, those people are going to come home with a new label. And will we see them differently? I noticed that just the label Olympian, it has a totally different feel to it, right? And I noticed how many of the Olympians have tattooed the Olympic rings on their bodies. Why? That way they will never forget that they were an Olympian. They will remind themselves, every time they see those rings, of the hours and hours of dedication they put in to become an Olympian. And so you look at all those people and, do we have a different way of thinking about people who got the gold medal as opposed to the silver, as opposed to the bronze? But, every one of those Olympians is the best in the world because they got there. When I say best in the world, but they are there to represent their country because they are the best in their country. It doesn't matter whether they were seconds slower than the next, person. Doesn't matter. They were still the best in their country. And I think every Olympian should be proud. And I was so touched today when I saw a picture of a man who every morning at the Olympic Village stands with a sign and says, don't worry about whether you win a medal today or not. You are already the best. You are here. You are already the best. And I thought that was wonderful. All right, so Kimmy's asking me, how do you get rid of a label that they call you and you are not what they say you are? Okay, I'm going to talk about that in a second, Kimmy, so just bear with me a second, if you will. And if I don't get to it, just, ask me again. And so now, having talked about all the incredible Olympians, let's move on for a second. What about all the Special Olympic participants? The Special Olympics. I am pretty certain that every one of those Special Olympian athletes was labeled in their lifetime. Can you imagine how cruel other children would have been to them? Can you imagine how many names they have been called in their lifetime? But here's what I kept thinking about. You cannot become an Olympian Special Olympics athlete without having people who believed you were capable of so much. All right? It took parents who didn't buy into the label and said, yeah, you may only have 1.5 arms, but that doesn't stop you from being a swimmer. Or you may only have 2 limbs, not 4, but that doesn't stop you from becoming somebody who can participate in fencing or wheelchair tennis or whatever. Do you understand? It's like they must have had people who believed they were more than capable. They just had a few things that weren't working well. And that is the difference. The difference is, do you look at people who have disabilities and label them as less than? And I hope not. I really hope not. It's not my experience, that's for sure. My experience is most people with some sort of disability are incredible survivors, and they have incredible determination, and they have every right to be treated as a human being, a normal human being, and because, in fact, a better than normal human being. Why? They do things without all the assets that you and I might have. And I think it's really important to understand that when we label people as disabled, it's like that is a pretty big label. Think about this. Richard Branson is dyslexic. Can you imagine that what his friends and classmates and teachers may have thought about him? I wonder how they all feel today now that he has managed to become a billionaire, a multi-billionaire. I think he's worth over 6 billion, a multi-billionaire, and that he has managed to create a company that was able to take the first commercial passengers into space. I wonder how they feel now. Those that mocked him for being slow or stupid or whatever they gave him as a label just because he was dyslexic. Dyslexic wasn't within his choices. Wasn't something he could choose. It was something that was given to him. But boy, did he ignore that label. And to me, that is the most incredible thing, when people label you and you can ignore the label and just get on with your life. It's just their opinion. By the way, before I get on to the next subject, I see here that Kez is saying, I try not to label people when I first meet them anymore. I keep in my mind this quote, don't judge a book by its cover. It's what's inside that matters. Yes, absolutely true, Kez. And, Kimmy is saying that she's talking about the weather where she is, and she's saying they had a flood in their town and they've got a lot of smoke going on at the moment. So stay safe. Stay safe, Kimmy. Listen to all the warnings and labels. All right, if they say it's unsafe, get out. Don't play with it, please. And it is said that a mature person is able to lift the veil of delusion and see things as they are, and a wise person knows what is his to manage and what isn't. Think about that. Benji's saying success in life, hi Benj, isn't because of a lack of a weakness, but success in life is because of the overcoming of a weakness or in spite of it. Yes, and turning what is perceived as a weakness, Benji. Quite often the weakness is the greatest strength. If you remember, that was the thing that inspired me originally, was where I was on a management course, and the guy that was teaching it said, you probably don't realize it at the moment, but your greatest strengths have already made you as much money as you will ever make. If you want to change your life, take your weaknesses and make them work for you. I always remember looking at him and, inside I'm going, yeah, right. But Benji, success is not about what you were given. It's about what you do with what you were given. And so now I look at it and say, if we can lift the veil, all right, of a delusion, in other words, take it for what it is. Am I a beast? Yes. Does that mean I'm less than? Does that mean I'm not a nice person? Does that mean no? It means that for whatever reason, I have eaten too much, and that's why my body is overweight, and more than overweight, it's obese. So it's up to me. Do I want to carry on having the label or not? I'm working, as you know. By the way, big congratulations. I don't often do that for myself, but I am really happy that I am now back at the weight I was before the pandemic happened and before the fire happened. So all that negative stuff that went on, in my life, and the eating that went on with it, the stuff that was happening in my body, I was retaining extra water and stuff was going on. All that, I've managed to get back to start again where I was a year ago. So now I'm on a very different trajectory. So I am happy. Kez is saying, what about all the amazing people from the past that have done things better, to better the world? They all had not so good label put on them, but they decided not to be defined by them and do great things. Absolutely, Kez, and that's what I'm saying. What if Sir Richard Branson, had bought into the fact that he was dyslexic and people's labels about people who are dyslexic, all right? What about Russell Brand? What about Catherine Zeta-Jones? What about Winston Churchill? Or Demi Lovato? They all have the label of being bipolar. Russell Brand and Catherine Zeta-Jones turned their labels around and became, A-list movie stars. Winston Churchill, you got to admit, he did pretty well ignoring his label. And Demi, bless her heart, she sings her lungs out and it's not easy for her. And so you look at these things and go, look at the label and decide what you want to do with it. Whether it's true or not, decide what you want to do with it. How about Steve Jobs? He was a university dropout, wasn't he? Actually, he dropped out of college. Did you know that? Steve Jobs dropped out of college. Why? Yeah, he dropped out of college because of financial constraints. Couldn't afford it. Didn't stop him that he didn't have a college degree, nor did it stop Bill Gates. Interesting. Kimmy's saying, I was weighed at my clinic. I have 3 pounds to go to where I was a year ago, but my scale says differently. Well done, Kimmy. How much difference does your scale say, more or less? So it's good to know how your scale matches up, if you like, to the one at the clinic. So all I do is, when I know that, okay, I can adjust it this much. I always, when I get measured at my clinic, I actually make sure that I keep my shoes on almost, you know what I mean? I want to be heavier at the clinic, so that whatever I do at home, next time I go to the clinic, I'll take my shoes off, and so we go, Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard, right? He's a college dropout. Do you think he cares? But he's got a new label now. Right? People are not labeling him as the great Bill Gates anymore. Now it's to do with his infidelities. Hold on one second, people. I'm sorry, I'm on a call. Sorry about that, everybody. I just want to explain what is happening. The whole of our community we've been without water for 24 hours as they chlorinate all the lines. And I knew this was going to happen. So these are the instructions as to what I do next. Because, obviously we got to now clear the chlorine out of the lines now that they've done the good work. So Kimmy's saying that she has lost 10 pounds. You know something, Kimmy? That's the range that I'm in as well. And it feels good. All right. It feels good because I know that label minus, it feels good, right, Kimmy? And you've worked hard at it as well. And so Jody, I know that, you went through the gastric bypass, but what is your minus label these days? All right. Because Jody went from having, a swollen, extended stomach to having a stomach the size of a grape tomato. And now she's learning. She's already lost 25 pounds. Wow. And, but the thing that I found so interesting about that, Jody, is you taught me, and I would imagine anybody else that's been witness to your journey, just how little we need to survive. All right, that we can survive on just broth. We can survive adequately as long as we have enough protein. All right, so Kimmy is saying that her scale is 10 pounds heavier than the one at the clinic. You weigh in 10 pounds heavier, or that you weigh in 10 pounds heavier at the clinic. They are both correct, Kimmy, if you know. All right, you're one at home. So every time you get on your scale, just go less 10 pounds. That's how much I weigh. Or get a new scale. It's a great time in the summer, to maybe somebody's throwing away a scale, in a garage sale or something, now that we're starting to do things like that again. So some of you will remember a viewer that we had, by Benji, a viewer that we had who was agoraphobic. That means that she was scared to go outside her front door. She also was a germaphobe, the label there. She was scared to go out because she feared she would get sick if she went outside. And so you look at it and you go, those were two pretty self-isolating labels. If you buy into the label and you don't go outside, all sorts of things will happen. And the funny thing was, I think that within 2 months of being part of DearMamaSal, she was out of the house and then started to go in cars, and then she got her license, and then she went to an Adele concert in the first 12 rows. And then I remember she got in an airplane. And, you look at it and go, in a way, we need support sometimes to ignore the label. Start on that somebody phoning both my numbers, so that might be important. Okay, I don't know. So think about that and go, do you want to hold on to these labels in a negative or positive way? I didn't like the label smoker, and try what I could to get away from that label. And believe you me, I spent a lifetime trying to get away from that label. It wasn't until baby Juliana was born that I had the real, all the ducks came together and went, okay, that's it. It's amazing when I think about it, that I had tried everything that they ever came up with to stop smoking. But it was the idea of going down to meet Juliana in their new home. If you remember, they would just move she was born just before they moved into a new home. And so the first time I went down to meet Juliana, all right, I said, I don't want to be a smoker. That's what I don't want to have that attached to me. And I disinfected all my clothes and my suitcase and everything I could to make sure I brought as little of that smoke into her life. And I know there are times when I look back on it, and I wonder if any of you do as well. And I'm horrified at how much I must have brought into people's life. Not really aware of that, because we have learned so much, right? And now I have a new label, which is non-smoker and ex-smoker, and it brings all different connotations. And now I'm about to get an even bigger label to it, which will be, I think next year, I will have somebody who hasn't smoked for 10 years. I like that label. And not a puff. And so I know Kimmy, for example. Kimmy, you've done a lot of work to try and get more healthy. Jody, I mean, the things you have done to get away from your labels in the last year alone are amazing. I look at Lauren in Tasmania and the things she is doing to get away from her labels. And I look at it all and go, isn't it amazing that some people just decided now is the time, I don't want to live by the labels anymore. And, just being female was a label for so long, wasn't it? Just being female was a label. And so you look at it and say, we change the labels. We give them and we change them. So now let's have some critical thinking around labels. Excuse me. Can you imagine that when I was trying to get the broadcast up today, and I had, first of all, accidentally put all the links up for today's broadcast on my personal site instead of on the DearMamaSal site? Do you think I gave myself some labels then when I realized that? And of course, I didn't realize it until I went to go live. And I thought, why aren't all the links there that are meant to be there? I know what I look at just before I go live, and I'm going, wait a minute, what's wrong? And then I assure you, I gave myself some labels that weren't very pleasant. But then as fast as I said, oh, you're so stupid, I went, no, you're not. You made a mistake. And luckily, your viewers, will understand that sometimes these things happen. And just go to the site and put up a new link and carry on. And I tried to do that. And guess what? It still didn't work. And so this is like, and I'm a double whammy. And so then what I did was I said, stop. Kimmy, one thing is use the word stop, either with yourself or other people. Stop. I don't like the label. Okay? Even if you believe it to be true, I don't like the label. So please stop. And what I did was I said to myself, stop, you're not stupid. You're not stupid. You're anything but stupid. So do yourself a favor. What do you need right now? And I said, I need the time to get this fixed. So I said, then give it to yourself. And then that's when I put up the thing that said, I am going to reset everything and then come back at the bottom of the hour. You see, it gave me 15 minutes to get it sorted out. And of course, there was that little voice in my head that says, what if you can't get it fixed in 15 minutes? And my other voice said, you will. All right, so Jody's saying, I gave myself some labels when I didn't catch it earlier. You see, interesting, Jody, as my admin, realized it at the same time I did. And as I was busy trying to fix it, Jody sent me a message and said, did you know that? And I'm going, yep, I'm working on it. But, Jody, you gave yourself a label of what? I mean, just out of interest, what were you saying to yourself? What label were you putting on yourself? And, I can imagine that you did, but I hope you corrected it really quickly. Because whatever labels you put on yourself, the truth is All right, that I know how much you care about Dear Mama Sal. Oh, you failed me. Yeah. Well, that's a nice label. And really, I would say that you could put the label that I didn't check. That would be true. But that you failed me? I don't think so, Jody. If you want to believe that, you go right ahead. If you want to do that number on yourself, then you go right ahead. But I didn't feel that you failed me. I just, something quite honestly, when I realized that you picked it up the same time or just a little bit after I did, I laughed and went, yep, I wasn't the only one. And it made me feel better. In other words, I missed it and so did you. And it was just like, it's fine. Yes, Jody's saying I usually check, but it got by me this week. Yeah. So take a new label, human being. So the first question I ask myself when somebody labels me is it true? And if it is, I own it. So, Kimmy, you were asking about this. Can you give us the label that you are trying to stop people calling you? Because the first thing is there any truth in the label? And if there is, own it. All right? And that to me is the most freeing part of it. All right. The day that I accepted that I was obese was the day I had freedom from the stigma. You know what I mean? It wasn't stigma anymore. I didn't feel badly about it. Um, oh, so you have people actually calling you crazy. Yeah. And, how about, would you like some words to put around that? Because, I'm a great believer in do the research, Kimmy. And I would say to the person, non-aggressive language, I just want to make sure I understand this. Do you mean crazy as in mentally ill? And if they say, yeah, you go, oh, like Russell Brand and Catherine Zeta-Jones and Vivian Lee, from Gone with the Wind. And what about Winston Churchill? Right? I would just go, that's right. Hi, Mary. Good to see you. And I love you too, honey. I think. Is there any reason I should not love you? So I'll love you until I know otherwise. How's that? All right. So you're saying that they are saying you're crazy, like you have mental problems, and you don't. I have mental problems. I think that's a mental problem, isn't it? So, it's just their judgment, Kimmy. But, I would look at it from a non-violent communication point of view and go, oh, that's an interesting label. I'd call it for what it is, right? When they say, well, you're crazy. Okay, that's an interesting label. What is it about my behavior that makes you think I'm crazy? Because I didn't realize that you were a medical diagnostic person. And, I have yet to have a medical person tell me that is a fact. You see, you don't have to be nasty. But I would call it for what it is, Kimmy. I would say, stop a minute. Stop a minute. You just gave me the label crazy. Did you just get a psychiatric degree I didn't know about? Because quite honestly, there's something about my behavior that makes you feel that way. What is it? Yes, and Jody's saying, I was going to bring that one up in a second, Jody, but just remember you used to say, if you're a car, does it mean you're a car? Yes. And I've always said, I heard that once in a management thing that I was attending. And what the guy said, it is very interesting, the things that we take on and the things that, no, I think this might have been, I lie, I think this might have been Wayne Dyer who said this, that if somebody called you a car, Kimmy, if somebody said, oh, you're a car, you'd go, what? If somebody said you're a car, are you going to go around the room going vroom, 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 vroom? No, you know it's not true. And Kim is saying they give her the label of being crazy because they don't like her. Well, hello. Have you noticed how people do that? When they can't beat you, Kimmy, they give you labels. When they can't get you to do things their way, how many of you have had that one? When people can't manipulate you anymore, that they label you instead. And Kez is saying, I wish we didn't have labels to be defined by, because every one of them has bows to their strings. And a lot of time we focus too much on them. And if we cannot see the good, if we cannot, and the good ones do harm, especially the ones from childhood. And they're not good ones. Yes, but the thing is this, if you want to get away from labels, Kez, then do you also want to get away from, oh, you're so talented, or you're charming, or you are so kind? Do you want to get away from those labels? I don't think so. So the truth is, we need to be able to cope with both sides of the labels, the good ones and the bad ones. We all want the good ones. But I want to tell you, some of the bad ones are true. Some of the bad ones are true. And you will know that you are emotionally intelligent when you can pick up some of those bad labels and go, you know something, they got a point. So I want to change that label. What do I need to do about it? Mary's saying that I have no reason at all not to love her. I suffer from stress. Please advise me. People tell me I'm so emotionally unavailable. Please advise me how to come out of being so stressed, being seen stressed. Well, the thing is, Mary, you do know, and I want to say this, you do know that I'm not a medically qualified person to help you in that way. I do not have any degrees in it. I am not a doctor, a psychiatrist, or a therapist, or anything like that. The only thing I can possibly do, and I do it every week, is to talk to people about what I know as somebody who's lived long enough to get gray hair. And what I've learned about being stressed out for most of my life, what I've learned from being overly anxious, what I've learned from having people attack me. I can give you that information. And what I do on a daily basis of researching stuff. But the thing is this. Is it true that you are stressed? Right. And Kimmy's saying, I've been to a therapist for a long time and they do not think I'm crazy. Yes. And that the whole point is the only person who can label you crazy, and I believe they can't even do that. I don't think crazy anymore is a medical diagnosis. Am I correct in that? Jody, could you look that up for us, if you can? Or maybe Kimmy, could you look it up? Actually, it's yours. Maybe can you, because I know Jody doesn't have both her devices at the moment. If there's a way that you can just look up, is crazy still a medical diagnosis? I don't think it is. Because I think we now have all the sub parts to it, like, all the other things that we used to call everything. If you weren't normal, you were crazy. Postpartum depression was considered crazy. They locked people up for that. All right. Mary's saying, I just love being alone most of the time. I don't believe that is being stressed. So, Mary, may I ask you some questions around that? And by the way, is it okay that I talk about this publicly? Because, you might not like that. But hopefully we can help each other and other people by talking about it. I'm certain you're not alone in that. Jody's saying insanity is no longer considered a medical diagnosis. There you go. I thought so. But a legal term in the United States, stemming from its original use in common law. Yes. All right. And Kimmy's also looked it up. In medicine, insanity is no longer considered a medical diagnosis, but is a legal term. Yep. So you both obviously got to the same site. So here's the question. Next time anybody calls you crazy, you go, could you redefine that, please? What? Could you redefine that? Because as far as I know, and if you care to check it out, please do, that, insanity is no longer considered a medical diagnosis. So this is just your opinion we're talking about, not your medical diagnosis. What is it that I am doing that's driving you crazy? Because how often is it a mirror of, the truth is, they don't like your behavior. And, I would be interested in what is it about my behavior that you don't like? What is it about my behavior that you don't like? Remembering, Kimmy, it's their problem, not yours. All right? But you can hear it and go, wait a minute, is that true? And is there something I want to change? You can make those decisions. But really, their definition and label of calling you crazy is because you are driving them crazy in some way. They perceive your behavior to be crazy making, if you like, to them. So let's carry on about some of the things you can do. If you don't think it's fair, which Kimmy doesn't, reject it. It's just their opinion. So, Kimmy's saying, I never see the people that call me that. I don't talk to them either. Well, therefore, why does it still worry you? It's just, I've got people who really don't like me, Kimmy. Do you think I care about it? Do you think I waste time on it? They're entitled to their opinion. Hey, maybe they're right. I don't know. I don't care. I want to be happy. Mary's saying, yes, you can talk about the subject of stress. I need your wisdom. I am okay with it. Okay, so what would you like to change? What behavior? You're saying that people see you as stressed because you spend time alone. May I ask you, when you spend time alone, what are you doing? Kez is saying, I just bought a book, which I'm going to read after one that I'm reading at the moment. It's called Change Your Thinking and Change Your Life by Kate James. Yes, change your thinking does change your life. You understand? If I hear somebody call me crazy, I go, really? Now, what makes you think that? You see, I don't hold on to it. I just push it straight back. Or I will actually ask the question, what is it about what I do that makes you think I'm crazy? And by the way, I'm not. Medically, I'm not. How do I know? I've been there and done that. Yeah. Now, if you caught me 20 years ago, you might have been right, but right now, no. Spicy, hi. It's been a rough week. In what way, Spicy? Anything you can talk about? Because, it's really important. And I thank you for those of you who are coming out of the shadows and letting me know you're there. Because one of the great things about Dear Mama Sal as a group of people is everybody's worry is somebody else's solution. So the fact Mary comes out and talks about people as saying that she is stressed because she isolates herself, that could be true, Mary. So I need a bit more information to understand it. But, there are an awful lot of people in the world who isolate themselves because they want to be alone. They enjoy their own company. How about people? So, Mary, when you are alone, do you curl up in a ball and feel sorry for yourself? Or are you alone reading a book, being creative, chatting with your friends? What is it that they see? Okay, thanks, Jody, for that heads up. Um, and I look at it and say, Kez, the fact that you can see that by changing your thinking, you could change your life, and are doing some more research by reading a book about it, very, very important. Very, very important. It tells me that you are taking steps in the right direction. By the way, from my experience, Kez, it wasn't one or two books, all right? I needed so many different books because each time they undid a little bit of the puzzle. And now, am I a perfect person? Of course I'm not. Of course I'm not a perfect person. But you know something? I learned a whole lot more. Really, I've learned so much about myself and found out that some of the labels were quite true, Kim, just so you know. Some of the labels that people put on me way back when I used to get so angry about them, actually were quite true. I just wasn't aware enough to be able to own them. I wonder, does that make sense to anybody? I wasn't aware enough to be able to own them. I just fought them all. Instead of going, is that true? Let me think about that. Ah, interesting. And Kez is saying that that particular book that she talked about, Change Your Thinking to Change Your Life, also has a lot of sentences to answer and activities to do. Yes, and that to me is a great way to look at it. One of the things I like to do whenever we discuss these things is talk about, do you have the words to put around this? When somebody calls you a label, are you going to say, stop? Did you just call me a... And then when they go, yeah, you go, could you explain to me why? What was it that made you call me that very hurtful label? And if it's, something like crazy, that's that used to be a medical diagnosis. It isn't anymore. And do they have the qualifications to be able to call you that? So I've had it happen with me. If it's true, own it and take steps towards changing the labels, all right, in your own mind. Is it fair? If it isn't, say so. I don't find that fair. Somebody says something. You remember somebody called me a name recently, and I actually said, stop. I find that a very judgmental comment. All right, which was true. But I went away and I thought about the comment and thought, what was it about my behaviors? I did ask her, but she, what was it about my behavior that made you put that label on me? I want you to know. And then I took that information and thought about it and thought, well, if I look at it from her point of view, I can see that it's possible. So let me now change my behavior. Let me not stay in anger. Let me use that adrenaline to change my behavior. And I did. So again, if somebody said to you, you're a car, you don't take on that label, do you? You don't fill yourself up full of gasoline and then go vroom, vroom, vroom around the room. You don't take that label on. So why do we take the negative labels on? We don't stop them. We just suck them up and go, oh, I'm a bad person. And oh, she thinks I'm crazy. So what? But first of all, remember I said this early on, consider the source. Who is this person labeling you as crazy? Is this a person that you have a great deal of respect for? Is this a person who you know to be kind and generous and intelligent in your mind? And if so, maybe you want to listen. But if this person is angry and bitter and nasty, why would you even worry? But in a way, I would still worry. I would worry enough to say, stop. I really don't like the label you just put on me, but let me ask you something because I care. What made you call me that? Just lowers the whole thing. By the way, be prepared to listen. If they said because of this, 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 and this, don't slam them down. All right? Stay interested. Seek first to understand. And so, you look at it and you go, the whole reason we talk about labels and how to deal with them is because we buy into them, right? The reason they do damage is only because we buy into them. If I called you a car, you would not buy into it. You would just reject it. So why can you do that when I say you're a car, but you can't do it when I say you're stupid? So the answer is it's what we do to ourselves. We, at some level, at some deep cellular level, we believe in that it might be true. You see, if we totally disbelieve it, we wouldn't buy into it at all. True? So give me some other labels that people have called you. And I would say, do expect to be mislabeled, all right? Expect it. Be prepared to be labeled incorrectly. Why? You're a human being, and you are dealing with other human beings, and their perspective is not maybe as at the same level as yours. They don't come to join us at DearMamaSal every week and an itchy nose, and learn about these things, right? They don't have that knowledge base that you do. You think about all that you have quietly learned week by week by coming to DearMamaSal, right? How many of you can say that you really look at life slightly differently? Why? Because drip by drip, every week we add a bit more to your knowledge base about who you are and why you do the things you do. And so be aware and prepared that people will mislabel you. All right? Some people will label me today. Do I need to change my life because of it? No. Do I need to curl up in a ball? No. So when I hear, by the way, how many labels are people giving us that we have no idea about? Yeah. As I said, I have no idea what labels my neighbors might be putting on me when I'm not around. I have no idea. They could be nasty. All right, Jody's saying the fear is if we embrace that negative label, we're accepting and agreeing to it. But it can foster change. Yes, I agree, Jody. So one of the things that I have found is, and I found this out when I was a professional speaker, everybody got to evaluate me at the end of a speech. And I would ask myself sometimes whether this person with this evaluation was in the same room as the 3,458 other people that gave me a standing ovation. Was this person in the same room? And the wonderful thing was that I realized pretty early on that this was not about me as much as them. And I realized that some people don't like me just because I smile. All right. And then they give me that label, oh, she's a smiler. All right. And some people don't like me because I'm self-deprecating. I make fun of myself, right? Or some people don't like me because of, I got red and black in my kitchen. People dislike me for the strangest ways. But does it change my life? No. Why? They don't like it. By the way, I would give myself a label today of clashing with my decor or fighting with my bra strap. It's just like, I'm looking at it and going, this pink does not go well with that red, does it? No. But, am I going to change my clothes because of it? Maybe. Or not put the red up when I'm wearing pink. If it really bugs me, I need to change. If it really bugs me, I need to do something different. So if you are no longer talking to the person who judges you so harshly, you get a bonus point. All right? I'm not wasting my time worrying about somebody that called me names 20 years ago. Right? I'm getting on with my life. So do you understand that every time you get into a new environment, you will be relabeled? All right. For example, when I came to this new community, I am pretty certain within the first 48 hours of my being here, the neighbors were spreading stuff about me and they were making their labels fit. Now, yesterday, the most magical thing happened because I went to go for a walk and a whole group of neighbors descended upon me and gave me the most incredible support over something that's been happening uh, around me. And I just almost cried because I looked at them and I said, I really didn't know that you cared that much. And then two of the guys said, we don't. I said, good. But it was just like, you could tell by the way they were talking to me that they were fearful that I might move away because of some of the pressure that is on me at the moment. That I would say, I've had enough of living here, because of the pressure of things that are happening. And, I said to them, I got close. I said, I told the truth. I said, by the way, that thought did cross my mind, that why would I stay here? And they said, please, please, please stay. Don't run away. I said, I'm not somebody who runs away from stuff. And then one of the guys said, no, I got a feeling you are collecting enough information, and when you have it, you will act accordingly. I said, exactly. I am documenting, and I said, I will be taking some other steps when I have enough. But in the meantime, I will listen to both sides of the story. And then I will listen to the person that's attacking me, and I will also listen to you guys. Why? Because you have a different perspective. And somewhere in the middle, I will decide what action I need to take, if any. Sometimes things go away if you just ignore them long enough, right? So I do say this to all of you that have labels, query the label, all right? If somebody calls you, come on, give me some labels. If you can give me some labels, I'll give you some ways to counter them. Or, we've all got ways to counter them. So we all, let's put a label up and then we'll all say, okay, if I heard this, this is what I would say in return. Anybody? Give me a nasty label. I'm presuming that you all can handle the nice ones pretty well, right? Give me more. Stubborn. Oh, yes, that's a nice one. So, Jody, I noticed you just called me stubborn. What behavior are you seeing that makes you want to call me stubborn? Or is it that I am not changing my opinion to fit yours? You see, go back to them. And then the other thing is, I'd be inclined to say, I am sorry that you perceive me as stubborn. That is not a perception held by most people who know me. But think about it, Jody. What sort of things must you be doing for people to call you stubborn? Let me ask the room. When you label somebody as stubborn, why do you do it? What is it that's happening that makes you say they're stubborn? In my case, I don't use the label, but I don't think I've used it for a long time. But, because if I start to use it, I go, hang on, turn that mirror around, Sal. You see, the thing is this, you are only stubborn if you won't change your way to fit mine. True? So anybody else got a... So when I understand that in my mind, Jody, I can come back and say, stop a moment. I heard you just labeled me. I use those words. I hear you just labeled me as stubborn. Could you let me know what behavior I am doing that makes you feel I am stubborn? Well, I don't know. And you go, would it be perhaps that I am not changing my point of view to fit yours? Does that help, Jody? You see, I believe that you're entitled to your opinion and they are entitled to theirs. So is Jody the only one that has a label to work with? I'm sure you've all got them. What labels were you given as a child? I was given the label of precocious. That was an interesting one. Jody, could you just give me the official definition of precocious? I know they used that about me a lot when I was a kid. And I believe that it had to do with the fact that I was funny as a kid and that I was pretty confident as a kid. But, I never asked them, why? Why did you call me precocious? What was it about my behavior? And what was it about the way you saw my behavior that made me precocious in your eyes? All right, thanks, Jody. Jody's saying the official definition of a child having developed certain abilities or proclivities, there's a nice word, isn't it, at an earlier age than usual. In other words, I was older than my years. All right, I could carry out a very healthy conversation with adults, before I was 10. A very healthy conversation. I could debate with adults before I was 10. I also was, an actress, and there was no doubt about that in anybody's mind. I could evoke a lot of emotion in people and I could display it. Passion goes two ways, right? How many of you noticed passion can be very positive, but it can also be very negative? So you look at these labels. People say to me, I'm over emotional or used to, and I go, yeah, I am. Absolutely. But the funny thing is, I'm over emotional when I'm up on stage and talking to 7,000 people. And that's why people can listen to me, because I do evoke emotion, not only in myself, but in others. You see, therefore, being over emotional in those terms actually is a huge benefit to me. But what was it about my emotional state that was a problem for you that you call it over emotional? You see, the reason people would give you is because you burst out crying when I said this. Yeah, I normally do when people insult me like that. I do cry, yes. I don't call that over emotional. I call that being hurt. Yes, Kez is saying lots of YouTubers get labeled every day. Some of them go with it and use it to their advantage. And then Kez is saying, I was told as a child, talk fast. Oh, sorry. I told as a kid that she was a chatterbox, that you talk fast, and lots still call you that, right? Sometimes remind me. Okay, so that you should slow down. Is it true that you talk fast, Kez? And I would want to discuss the word chatterbox with you. Why do people call you a chatterbox? Because you have a lot to say? Did you ever ask them what their problem was? You see, a chatterbox, in my mind, is somebody that can keep talking. Great talent, Kez. Great talent that, Now, is it true, Kez? And I know, you've been around long enough that I can ask you straight questions, but Kez, is it true that you could perhaps learn a few skills about learning how to make a point in less words? And if so, then think about how you might do that. The joke is that I actually find it interesting that I do long broadcasts, and people say to me, you need to do the short ones. You need to do short ones. You get many, many more viewers. And I'm going, I don't do this for the viewers. I do this because I want to help people. And, the thing is that I've discovered is that when I do the longer broadcast, people talk more about their real stuff. It comes out during a longer broadcast. And so that is, I would rather help Kez look at the fact that she may or may not be a chatterbox, and is that a bad thing? You see, I can see good things and bad things in being a chatterbox. I'm a chatterbox, as you know. I talk fast, but boy, can I talk slowly and really get attention. Yep. If I really want to get attention, Kez, can you feel the difference? I always remind myself when I'm really trying to make a point, slow it down, and less is more. Do you like the label chatterbox? If not, what will you do about it? Will you perhaps go to something like Toastmasters and learn how to, make a point? Will you perhaps read books on public speaking or things like that, Kez? You see, you can either take this as a bad thing or a wonderful opportunity. And obviously the label didn't sit well with you because you still remember it. All right, so Kez, and I love her honesty always, when I get excited or haven't seen somebody for a long time, I want to tell people helpful information when I first meet that person. So I don't forget telling them what will make them, yeah. You see, you get excited, Kez. Is that true? You get excited and you want to share all the good news and you want to share the news that you think they will want to hear. And Kez, one of the fun things about that is I can almost feel you. You know what I mean? I can almost feel that kid in you that gets so excited. And this is like, oh, I got to tell you. Blah, 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 blah. I totally relate to that. But is that a bad thing? Isn't that the reason why some people absolutely adore you, Kez? I want to tell you that I have been labeled more times than you can shake a stick at being a YouTuber, and really most of the labels just, I just let them be. I have learned, that I can get a really nasty comment in something and I will just thank them for their opinion. I don't have to be rude. I don't have to ignore them even. I just will say thank you for your opinion. In other words, you're entitled to think what you like about me. It doesn't affect my life. And so I look at the labels that we give each other. And now let's turn it around. How many times a day do we label others? All right. How many times a day are you the labeler? Now, Jody, being the kind and always compassionate person that Jody is saying to Kez, I think you're pretty great, Kez. You've always have fantastic ideas, helpful information, and you participate in the conversation. Thank you. Now, I'm pretty sure Kez didn't mind any of that. Now Kez is saying the label is the nicest one from my childhood. Also, I have mild disability. You know something, Kez? That doesn't change who you are. All right? I would like to suggest that more people than you know have a mild disability. And I can understand that that probably caused you to have labels. But as I said at the beginning of the broadcast, how many Special Olympians were probably teased and mocked and had most terrible labels put on them as kids by their supposed peers. And today we'll stand, or this, in the next month, we'll stand up with gold medals and things and tell the world they're not nearly as disabled as people judge them to be. And that is the thing. Do you want to let these labels stop you? Or do you want to know that for every one person that thinks you're a chatterbox, there is a Jody who thinks you're great, always have fantastic ideas, helpful information, and participate in the conversation? And by the way, Kez, are you not the same Kez that whenever I do December, aren't you the same one that sits by me hour after hour? Aren't you that Kez? All right. And Jody's saying, Kez, I suffered so badly in grade school and middle school. I had a stuttering problem and I was petrified to speak in school. Yeah. And I was English as a second language, so you can imagine what my early schooling was like. And, I was multilingual at the time because I was born in a foreign country, but I also spoke English. So it was like I got the words all mixed up. I was using two languages at the same time half the time. Oh, yeah, I can remember what that felt like. So we all have had the labels, but here's the thing. Let's just quickly, before we finish this, think about the fact, do we label others? And what suggestion do I have about labeling others? I think sort of start scoring yourself how many times a day you catch yourself labeling somebody. And then correct it. Correct it. Oh, Kez, it wasn't true. Okay. There is another Kez in the world. For the longest time, Kez, I thought you were the same one. There is another Kez in the world. I think she used to live in Florida. That whenever I go up as DearMamaSal on December, she would be there hour after hour with me. It was just amazing. And I could delegate stuff to her and she would help me. And by the way, Jody, that's something that I wanted to remind you about, because we're always looking for people who are willing to assist Jody, when you come into a broadcast. So any of you that like, when you come onto the broadcast, that you like to be part of the actual stuff that we're doing, you let us know, because it's nice for us to be able to say, hey, if this comment comes up, could you just cover it off, with this or something similar. And it's wonderful that way. Jody gets more time to do what she needs to do, and we really appreciate it. So Kez, I know that you are a great and regular viewer. I know sometimes you do it in the background, but it is always nice to know. Same with Kimmy and so forth, right? We're always looking for people that want to help a little bit more. So feel free to question a label, but feel free to question the labels that you give others. Why did I call that person this name? It's because they didn't agree with me, or that they hurt me and I'm retaliating. So I am working really hard these days at catching myself from doing the same thing. It's not easy, I can tell you. It means I have to admit I'm not perfect and I do the same thing. That's not easy. And so when you hear these labels, deal with it or move on. And preferably deal with it and move on. In other words, either decide you're going to stop it, and the way you stop it is to acknowledge it. I heard you call me or I heard you use this label. Could you explain to me why? And you'll be amazed how many people, when you use those words, will just, oh, it doesn't matter. And you go, okay. Okay. Most people don't want to have that discussion. why they judged you so harshly. I have now found that, people who judge me, I can just use the words and say, I found that pretty judgmental. No, it's not. I said, actually, yes, it is. Pretty judgmental. But you are entitled to your opinion. You see, if I believe in free speech for myself, I must also believe in it for others. And my whole point with people is you're entitled to your opinion, but you don't have to hurt me in the process. That is your choice. You choose to not only have an opinion, but also to hurt in the process. I'd like you to think about that. And I have said that. I have said that. I have called them on the fact that they are entitled to their opinion, but when they then put more around it to make sure they hurt me, that it's not something I miss, that you chose to hurt me. And I love to be able to say to people, I'm sorry that you feel that way about me. And I cannot change your opinion of me. I will just keep being me, and I hope one day you will see me differently. You see, I don't want to change who I am, but I will look at what they said. In the cold light of day, when I'm not emotionally charged by it, I will go through that conversation again, and I will ask myself, is it true? And, if I can see, if I'm honest with myself, and that is the truth, right? If we are honest with ourselves, and it is true, then what do I want to do about it? So, Jody, I want to just make sure that you understand that saying the words that you failed me, do you really believe that to be true? Or is that just a label that you wanted to, go on a guilt trip? Is it your job, to make sure I don't do that? I don't think I ever told you that was your responsibility. And if it isn't your responsibility, then how could you have failed? It was your reaction in the moment, right? You see, because I am totally responsible for what I do. The fact that you may choose to help me by checking up on me every now and then on things like this is a wonderful gift that you give me. But it's not your job. I'm not paying you to do that. That is just your kindness. It's a whole different thing. And I am pretty certain that we can all look at ourselves every day and go, if only I had checked that first. But I didn't, so let me move on. I could, when I had the problem at the beginning of the broadcast, Jody, the thing that really surprised me was that why doesn't it have the normal thing that I would press to do X? And I remember saying that to myself, but I was running a bit late, wasn't I? And I went, never mind, YouTube must have changed their format again. And I just carried on. It wasn't until I went to go live that I realized I had put the stuff on the wrong YouTube. And then I had lots of labels for myself. Human nature. Stupid idiot. And I just went, yeah, I sure am. And, I didn't sort of do it in a nasty way. I just went, yep, that would be true. And, the worst thing was that I did get up early enough to have it all under control beautifully. And for some reason, I know what the reason was. This whole thing about all the water being chlorinated. When I finish the broadcast, I have to go outside and turn the faucet on outside for half an hour, and then retest the water to find out if there's still chlorine in the line. And if it is, I then have to run the water for another length of time, and then keep doing that until the chlorine is out of the pipes. Very exciting stuff to do. So I had a lot of stuff on my mind about chlorine. I have not been able to use any of my faucets. So here's a trick that I found out. If you ever have a reason not to be able to use the water in your house, Let me show you what I did. Hold on a sec. And I want you to think about how many things you do every day that are purely subconscious. So I knew that I was not allowed to turn that faucet on. So here's what I did. I took a Safeway bag. I took a Safeway bag and just hung it over the faucet. And there's one on my shower head, and there's one on every faucet in the house. There is one in my washer dryer. Why? I'm not allowed to turn on my washer dryer before I do. And first of all, I got to clear the chlorine from the lines, and then after that, I need to run my washer on a rinse cycle to stop any chlorine that might be in that thing, in the line to the washer. Do you understand? So the whole thing is, what did I do? I knew subconsciously I would turn on a faucet if I didn't make it difficult. So that's why I put a Safeway bag on all of my faucets. And they will stay there until I have cleared the lines completely, and then probably another little while. And I cannot tell you how many times today already I went, oh yeah, why is that bad? Oh yeah, I'm not allowed to use that. When I went to make my coffee in a hurry, guess what? I went to fill up with water, and the bag was there. So I go, it's a habit, right? It's a habit. Think about it. There's so much of your life is habitual. And I literally had the cup under the faucet and was going to fill up the coffee maker with an extra cup. And I went, no, I can't use that. When I went to rebrush my teeth, right? Take my meds. How many times do you, without thinking, turn on the faucet? I made sure that I showered late last night, so because I knew I wouldn't be able to shower this morning. So all these things are really important that you understand the habit. Okay, so I need to get out of here. This is DearMamaSal saying, look after one another. Remember, everybody is likely to get labeled this week. Deal with it differently. And you will label other people. Apologize for it. And look after one another, but most of all, please, 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 look after yourself. This is DearMamaSal saying, bye-bye for now.